Welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic. It's the Kitchen Table series, and we are back with deck tech number 50, Mono Green Infect. Hello and what's up, MTGBC? That is the MTG Burgeoning community. You are back for the Kitchen Table series, and here it is. We are on deck tech number 50 in what is MTG Burgeoning's longest running content series. Let's get right down to it. This is Mono Green Infect. As is generally customary during the Kitchen Table series, let us begin with a breakdown of the land base, and it should take about 7 seconds. We have 20 basic forests. That's it, 20 basic forests. That is all. There are no soul rings, there are no mana elves. That's the entire land mana base right there, 20 basic forests. Now let's check out our creatures that are going to be infectious, get it, or poisonous. Poisonous in being Virulent Sliver. For a green mana, we get a 1/1 Sliver that gives all slivers poisonous 1. Whenever a sliver deals combat damage to a player, that player gets a poison counter. A player with 10 or more poison counters loses the game. 4 copies of Virulent Sliver. And that is going to be a very, very big lightning rod for our opponents. Historically, playing with this deck, the Virulent Sliver is targeted more than any of the other creatures with Infect. Next playset of creatures we're going to show is Glistener Elf. It's a green, it's 1/1, and it has Infect. That's pretty much all we have to talk about with Glistener Elf. 4 copies. Next up, and the last of our creatures with Infect, we have a playset of Blight Mambo. 1 in a green for a 1/1 snake with Infect that we can tap 1 in a green to regenerate. So we're not playing heavy creatures here. The goal of this deck, turn 1, cast one of these guys. Turn 2, try to swing in and keep putting out the Infect. There is a way in which to kill an opponent on turn 2 with this deck. That is a possibility. So let's start talking about the spells that we are including in this deck to help pull off that feat. It's possible. It doesn't always happen, but it is possible. We're playing with a lot of play sets in this deck, folks, so the description is not going to take very long. The first set we're going to talk about is Mutagenic Growth. It has the Phyrexian mana green symbol, which of course means that we can just pay 1 green or pay 2 life. Target creature gets +2/+2 till end of turn. So this is a great way to protect one of our dudes early game from a shock, not so much from a lightning bolt, unless you have some other spells in your hand, which it's very surely we might. I love the fact that this is included just because we can tap out and still cast the spell by paying life. 4 copies of Mutagenic Growth. Next up, we have 4 copies of Blossoming Defense. 1 green to add instant speed. Target creature we control gets +2/+2 and gains hexproof. That'll keep the shocks and the lightning bolts at bay. 4 copies, Blossoming Defense. Next play set of growth spells we have is Might of Old Krosa. 1 green, you're going to see that a lot, folks. 1 green, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If we cast this spell during our main phase, target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. 4 copies of Might of Old Krosa. Next up, we're going to move away from the instant spells to include a playset of what might be the greatest green aura in the history of Magic, and that's Rancor. 1 green, it's an aura, it enchants a creature, it enchants one of our creatures, of course, and enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and gains trample, but more importantly, when Rancor goes to the graveyard from the battlefield, we put Rancor right back into our hand. So this is going to be a recurring aura that we can continuously cast on our dudes. And trust me, we're going to, because our dudes most likely are going to die. 4 copies of Rancor. Next up, we have another play set of Scale Up from Modern Horizons 1. Sorcery speed for 1 green until end of turn. Target creature we control becomes a green worm with base power toughness 6/4. So imagine turn 1, cast Glistener Elf. Turn 2, untap. Play Forest number 2. Cast Scale Up on the Glistener Elf. It's now 6/4. Cast Might of Old Krosa during our pre-combat main phase. Make it a 10/8. Swing. Opponent dead. 4 copies of Scale Up. Next, we have another one of those lovely, lovely free spells to play. Invigorate. 2 and a green. If we control a forest... There's 20 of them over there. If we control a forest, an opponent can gain 3 life instead of paying Invigorate's mana cost. We don't care about the life gain. We just need to deal 10 points of infect damage. So we can let our opponents gain 300 life as long as we can cast this bad boy for free. Target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. So similar to what we were saying earlier about mutagenic growth, this is one of those spells that we can cast without needing any mana for, particularly on turn 1 when we cast a Glistener Elf or one of our Virulent Slivers. Most likely the Glistener Elf, of course, and it goes to get lightning bolted. Well, if we don't have enough to protect her, we can just use our Invigorate to protect the Glistener Elf. 4 copies of Invigorate. And the last set of spells to be included in this deck is going to be another playset, and it's going to become immense. Become Immense is 5 and a green, but trust me, we are never paying 5 and a green because this card has the Delve mechanic. For each card we exile from our graveyard, and if you look at how many spells we have, I mean, aside from the Rancor, which most likely will never be in our graveyard, we have 20 instant and sorcery spells, not to mention the number of creatures we may lose during combat or direct damage shenanigans. So Delve is a fantastic mechanic for this kind of spell because we're going to have the cards available in order to exile them to bring down the mana value of this spell. And if we can do it enough, then we can tap a green to give target creature +6/+6 until end of turn. 4 copies of Become Immense. And that is the entire mono green deck tech number 50 of the Kitchen Table series. Before we conclude, I do want to take a moment to point out something that I might have missed earlier with respect to the Virulent Sliver. Caution should be had when playing with Virulent Sliver because it reads all sliver creatures have poisonous 1. So whenever a sliver deals combat damage to a player, that player gets a poison counter. It has nothing to do with how many points of damage that's being done. So we could jack up the poison sliver to, like, with an Invigorate or a Scale Up, we can jack it up to 10, but it's only going to get the 1 poison counter because it's a poisonous 1. With respect to the Virulent Sliver, we're going to be dealing additional combat damage in addition to 1 of those poisonous counters. If we have multiple slivers in play, then each sliver has poisonous 1 and then another poisonous 1. So whenever a sliver's swinging in for combat damage, if there's 2 of them, then that opponent is going to get 2 poison counters instead of 1. But I did want to make sure I pointed out that jacking this guy's power is not going to put those many number of poison counters. It's just going to be 1 per turn. 1 per sliver that's dealing combat damage. And there it is, deck tech number 50, Kitchen Table series. All right, folks, 50 in the books. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.